What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Morimoto here, and this is our show, Living Better. Welcome to a happier and healthier you. And today, I have a very special guest. I have Dr. Chris with me. And hey, Dr. Chris, can you introduce yourself and give a bit on your background, please?
Sure. I'm Chris Wilkinson. I'm a functional medicine practitioner and clinical nutritionist. I currently have a very diverse patient population, but a ton of people with anxiety, a ton of people on the autistic spectrum, neurodiverse people, and the common denominator amongst a lot of my patients is neuroinflammation, contributing to their, let's say, anxiety, depression, OCD, ADD, ADHD. So.
Nice. Thank you for helping the people and helping this world. I want to dive into that just a little bit more because people haven't really heard maybe functional medicine, or if they haven't, can you maybe describe that a little bit uh, more in depth on what that kind of means?
Sure. I come from a conventional medicine background, script pads, hospitals, etc. And I transitioned into this because of some health concerns of my own that nobody was able to help me figure out, and it became the question of here's what's happening, here's what you can do to squash it, but why is it happening? So functional medicine looks at the why instead of just shutting it down. All right. Um, so it's a root cause basis, let's say, leading to the same result, improvement of symptoms, eradication of symptoms, or just getting people better, you know?
Right. Rather than just slapping duct tape on it, you dive in and
Yeah.
find the real reasons, right?
Yeah.
And so, you help people in medicine. You've tried MAGU. Can you give people a bit of a story on what life was like leading up to trying MAGU? What was kind of going on, and like what kind of encouraged you to try it?
So first of all, I look for what could be potentially contributing to neuroinflammation. And quite often it's food sensitivities, microbial situations like latent microbe infections, nothing acute where somebody has to run to the ER, but enough to be impacting their life on a day-to-day basis. So we find food sensitivities and change diet, use supplements that have an anti-inflammatory profile, and perhaps even, let's say, supplements to help neurotransmitter production and nerve conduction, etc. Um, and there's a lot of CBD out there, a lot of CBD products, a lot of gummies and whatnot that just didn't do the trick for people. Um, and I was left feeling like these aren't doing it. They're not the tidal wave of, let's say, panacea, if you want to call it that everyone's making it out to be. Um, and had tried a bunch of them myself and got no results, no appreciable difference. With Magu, a huge difference for myself, a huge difference in patients, in their actions, in their life, everyday situations. Some people, one of my patients, instead of mind hack, she calls it mind crack. She said, because she goes into such a zone that she refuses to be without it and she's addicted
It's
at this
great.
point. That's a different take on things, but I love that. So it's a life changer. It's a life changer.
I appreciate that story and that lighthearted sentiment. It's great that not only you but your patients and other people are benefiting from this as well. And you mentioned a scientific kind of topic, right? Like neuroinflammation, and people may not exactly have heard of that before. So when people think about this, like how have you seen it kind of most show up in people's life, or regarding with what you deal with on a day-to-day basis, like how does this kind of affect people on a daily basis?
I guess an analogy would be inflammation in a knee or a hip or a back is going to feel like pain. Range of motion is going to be impaired. Everyday function is going to be impaired. But think of a a red, let's say, throbbing area in a knee. All right, and correlation is on the nervous system in the brain, especially that inflammation, instead of it being a knee, it's like the nerves are irritated. I say, to make it make sense for people, I say, think of your brain having a rash and everything is irritating it. So instead of a certain shirt irritating your skin because of that rash, it's too many details going around that you can't focus on because your brain has this rash and it's just like, leave me alone. I just want to stay in this zone and not have to deal with too many things. Um, and or handling everyday situations. It's not up to it, but you have to keep your game face on and keep going and do things. So that's my analogy for neuroinflammation. It's an irritation of the nerves, and they're not optimal. They're not working at their best. They're behind the weather on that day. All right. And it manifests as brain fog, OCD, ADD, anxiety, depression,
Mhm.
cognitive function overall. So
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So there's,
in a lot of my patients, again, patients on the spectrum, neurodiverse, it manifests as behaviors. So it can be outbursts. It can be what seems to be perhaps physical, not violent, but just aggressive actions, because there's a lack of expression in a lot of cases. So that neuroinflammation makes somebody irritated, basically, you know.
right, right. Well, I appreciate, that background on things and how not only does it happen, but how it can show up in our lives. And I myself, have times of irritability, stress, and things like that. So having something to kind of help calm that nervous system down, I find helpful. It's not a cure all be all. We have to do other things as well, our diets
Right.
and everything, but it can help us step right into that new state. And so, taking MAGU is one thing to kind of help with that. But in addition, kind of like I just said, we have to be doing other things like physical exercise or whatever it may be. So for those kind of struggling with mental health or whatever you've seen before, what are some other ways people can think about improving their lives?
Sleep. Sleep is such a no-brainer, but people don't really pay attention to it a lot of times, or don't acknowledge that they're not getting good sleep. So sleep debt causes neuroinflammation that contributes to inflammation throughout the body. So sleep is one, and it's free. It costs nothing. So let's get it right. Might as well, right? Um, uh, Certain foods are irritants, let's say, and not so much an allergy where, for instance, like an anaphylactic reaction, like a throat closing up or a rash. It could be brain fog, headaches, anxiety. So, and most of my patients eat well. They don't eat, junk. They come to me already eating well, but that one food that they're eating, the metabolite of it is an inflammatory component down the line. They can eat it at 12 in the afternoon, 8 o'clock at night, they're feeling something anxious and whatnot. So it's figuring out what that food group is and cutting back on it. All right, reducing it in the diet, not eliminating it, just reducing the total intake of it, and perhaps then using a supplement to help the body metabolize those end products of the food. Um,
Right.
you know, so
Right, right, right. And are you saying that the food groups are going to be different for different people, or is it kind of always the same food groups that affect people the same?
everything is individual. It's
Right,
it's it's all highly individualized. You'll have 100 people who can eat that food, at a gathering, and then there'll be that 101st person who will feel bad that night. Meanwhile they all ate the same thing. So you know,
right,
so
right. So
it's
we have to be
extremely
aware.
individual. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
extremely
individual.
individual.
We have to be aware for ourselves, right? We can't just do what the other person does. It's different for all of us. And one more quick thing to double click into on what you said, sleep, right? I actually get this a lot, right? Kind of questions in the background for Magu. And so for sleep, when people think about, okay, well, what can I do? Maybe do I try to go to bed every day at 8 p.m. or how, like, do I need to stop drinking caffeine at a certain time? What are kind of like the biggest highlights and overall theme that you've seen from people that maybe they should be looking at when it comes to improving their sleep?
Um, electronics, electronics during, going to sleep with a phone, with an iPad, being online right up until that time and getting the brain excited, or aggravated or depressed so first thing, no electronics, and especially news. Stay away from the news, before bed. um, that's one thing. And then developing a habit. Most there a lot of people, adults especially, are working. They're trying to get in a few more emails, answer a few more texts at the end of the night. They wanted to fall asleep. They felt themselves getting tired at 9, but they keep pushing and get some more work done. And then they get a second wind around 10:30, and now they can't go to sleep. So it's listening to your body and being good to it, making it a priority. And so electronics, of course, caffeine, certain foods, all of the above.
Right, right. I think that's a common theme and something I've been guilty of in the past too, because we think, okay, I'm just going to relax. I'm going to scroll through this this article or these social media posts, and this is going to help me relax to get into sleep. But these can do the opposite thing with, like you said, like if it's a stressful news article or just the light itself, putting ourselves back in that work mind, right? So
Mm-hmm.
really appreciate all those tips. And you said not only yourself, but other people, your patients that have tried MAGU, right? And based on their experiences and what you've experienced yourself, there's some people who might be on the fence to try MAGU. What would you tell them, if they're sitting on the fence, whether they should try this or not for their life?
The people that should try it, whether they're on board or not, they already know that they have the situations that perhaps could benefit from MAGU. They already know they're anxious. They already know they perseverate. They already know they get headaches. They already know they can't sleep. And it didn't, in most cases, it didn't start last week. It's been lifelong for a lot of these people. So, you know, when I bring up the notion of neuroinflammation and explain, here's why your brain could be like that, because it's irritated. Your nervous system is irritated all the time. So you wouldn't hesitate, and I don't want to make a pharmaceutical correlation, but people wouldn't hesitate to take Motrin if their knee hurt. So why don't we do something if your brain hurts or is under the weather? It's I just try to make it as simple as possible. But once people understand the inflammation aspect of it with analogies, it goes easier, and people are certainly willing. Um, and people are running around to gas stations and buying things off a rack that says CBD. So people are doing this anyway. They're just picking the wrong things. You know what I mean? So
Right. Right. Like you said, it's easy for us to think of a sprained ankle or an inflammation on our shoulder, but do we really think about like, oh, my brain is inflamed and that's why I'm so nervous or whatever it manifests as. So I appreciate that feedback. And as we kind of wrap up here, is there anything that else that you kind of want to say to the community, whether it be a plug for your own content or website or your medicine practice, or just any last tips or thoughts that come to mind for the community?
I think for everybody, consider the why as to how they are feeling the way they are. All right. Not the what do we do about it, but what do we do to correct it so it doesn't happen. So the why, and going back to the beginning, the root cause or the root contributors, um, and be gentle to ourselves and take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to put it in your car's gas tank, don't put it into your body. So, you know.
I love your analogies. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Chris. I'm sure this will help many people. Anyone out there, drop any questions or comments below. Share this with a friend that you might think could benefit. Like this, subscribe for more. We'll see you all next time. Peace.
Okay, my pleasure. Take care.